what's up? We should talk about God today. Best believe that I be praying to him every day. God is good, God is great. A breakthrough chronicle brought to you today.
Welcome to Breakthrough Chronicles, real people, raw and resilient testimonies, where we bring you powerful, unfiltered stories from ordinary people who have experienced the extraordinary power of God. I'm your host, Anne-Marie Mora, and today we are joined by Nora, a woman who has faced an intense battle with anxiety. What began as a panic attack spiraled into a constant state of fear, leaving her feeling imprisoned in her own mind. But Nora's journey didn't end there. Nora has found hope and healing through prayer, nutrition, and even baking, which has become a source of peace and purpose for her. Nora's story is one of courage, resilience, and the extraordinary power of God's grace. Thank you, Nora, for sharing your deeply personal and inspiring journey with us today. Your story is a testament of the power of faith.
Yes, definitely.
So, why don't you start us off by telling us a little bit of your background and how you came to know the Lord?
So I've grown up in a very Catholic family. My grandmother was kind of the matriarch of our entire family, and she had a very deep and powerful relationship with God. So it was introduced as a very young age with the questions, why does she pray? She had all the saints on a stool in her house. And I would, the questions came, who are this? Why are you praying? And so it taught me at a very young age the power of prayer and who God was, who Jesus was. So that became the foundation of growing up. However, I still, being so young, I still didn't quite understand the depth of what that relationship could be until I got older.
So you grew up knowing the Lord at a very early age, knowing about prayer and the power of prayer. Tell us a little bit about how the anxiety started.
I started getting anxiety probably early teen years. It didn't we didn't even know it was anxiety. Actually, when I was even younger, I would start to have fear of getting in the car or going on long car rides. I honestly couldn't answer why that would start, but I didn't even know it was a panic attack until I was in therapy recently. I would vomit before getting in a car. I had a fear of driving far. My parents didn't understand it. Like I said, I didn't understand it, why the fear came so early, but it was there. And it wasn't until I was a teenager that the actual panic, the sensations of a physical panic attack started. At that time, that's when I would say my newly found relationship with God started, because I was in a very, abusive relationship in high school with a drug addict. So started then. Yes, it was to the point where he had threatened my life multiple times. And, to the point where he almost drove us off the road multiple times on a cliff. So the fear of roads started again back up then. Panic attacks started. So it started around teenagers that the actual panic attack sensations started around then.
How did this affect your daily life?
As a teenager, or when I got older?
As a teenager. Mm-hmm.
I didn't really, back then, mental health wasn't really spoken about nor really understood. So for me, I didn't understand what was happening to me. My parents didn't understand. Unfortunately, mental health issues does run on my dad's side of the family and my dad himself. But even himself, being older generation, they had no title to it. They had no diagnosis for it. He did understand what I was feeling because he himself had felt it, but he didn't have any recommendations on how to get better or what to do because he was struggling himself. So at the time, I didn't call it a panic attack because I didn't know what it was. I just know it felt like I was dying. It felt like I was going to have a heart attack. It felt like I couldn't breathe. But I didn't go to the doctor. I didn't really know who to go to. I just know my parents told me, you're okay. It's not real. That it's something your father feels and that your family feels. And it's just one of those things that they quote unquote said I had to deal with. So, at that time, I would suppress it. It would happen, ignore it. It doesn't exist because who's going to understand? Nobody's going to know what this is. And I felt crazy. So I just honestly suppressed it for almost my entire teenage life and even my early 20s.
Wow. Yeah, there wasn't much support for mental health growing up back
No, not at
in
all.
our time. So take us to the point where you were an adult. How did that impact your life as an adult? Did it increase? Did it kind of go dormant?
It increased significantly because of suppressing it for so many years. I didn't learn, like I said, until later on in life, after learning and researching, spending most of the last 3 years learning all about it, that suppressing it only makes it worse. You fight it and it gets worse. So because of me fighting it and ignoring it and becoming fearful of it, pretending it's not there, all I did was intensify it as I got older. So I would fear the next one. I noticed caffeine would trigger it. So I stayed away from caffeine.
Wow.
I noticed there were certain things I ate and drank that would trigger it, or certain car rides that would trigger it. So instead of facing the fear and just kind of taking it in, I ignored it or I stayed away and I gave into the fear, which only intensified it. So by ignoring it for so many years and, or just, like I said, suppressing it, all it did was make it 10 times worse as I got older.
And that led to something even more life-changing.
Correct. As 3 years ago, I had a full blown, I guess you could call it mental breakdown for what it is, because it was my mental health. My husband we're in the military, and my husband had to station back to Washington State, and I stayed back home with my parents until our plan was to find a house. But the day after he left, I had one of the biggest panic attacks of my life, with every sensation that you can think of. And for people who have panic attacks, there's many, but I had them all. I felt like I couldn't breathe. My legs felt paralyzed. I could not walk. I had depersonalization, derealization. My heart felt it was going to pop out of my chest. My stomach went complete shot. It was one of the worst feelings of my entire life. So, and at that moment, when you're in it, it feels impossible to get out of. I wanted to go to the hospital. I wanted to go get an ambulance. My father was there, luckily, and he helped me not get to the point of going to the hospital, but it lasted a good 2 minutes, which from that one alone, it rocked my world. And so after that, I was in a constant fight or flight 24 hours a day. So my body was in hypervigilant state and I could not get out of it. So that was kind of the start of my journey of this wild ride that I've been in for the last 3 years. It was one of the worst days of my life, that it completely changed the person I was. It changed every bit of my lifestyle. It changed every corner of my life.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
What did you do?
To be honest, I didn't know what to do. I went to the doctor, but doctors are not trained in mental health. So there's really not much that they can do for you. They sent me to a psychiatrist, which again, psychiatrists are, I actually found a really great one who believed in herbs. But at the same time, she really couldn't give me advice and just say, here's some medication, which there's nothing wrong with medication. I know it's helped so many people, but for me, it was a part of my fear journey. I've always been afraid of medicine my entire life because I felt like it was going to create a panic attack. A lot of these panic attacks resulted of a result of control. I'm a very controlling person, and if I can't control the outcome, I don't want to feel it. So that comes in place with the fear of medication. So I didn't want it. So I spent many weeks, I would say a good month or two, in hypervigilant state. So I was having panic attacks all day and all night. I got a therapist. I was searching for a therapist. I was searching for a psychologist. I was searching for another doctor. Nobody was able to help me they weren't giving me what I was looking for. And even then I didn't know what I was looking for, but I knew when I felt it, it was what I wanted. But unfortunately, I was also looking for a magic pill, as so many people look for because I know I'm not alone. There's many thousands of people that have been in my shoes, and we all want the same thing, a magic pill to make it all go away. And it wasn't till later that I realized there's no such thing as a magic pill. Everybody's journey is so different in their healing, but that's what I was looking for months, was a magic pill. Is there a supplement out there that'll make it take away? Is there a class I can take that make it go away? Is there a person who can take it all away in one night? But none of that existed. So it was searching and praying. At that time, I said, a lot of my aunts and my mom's side have all a very deep relationship with God. So I had a lot of talks with them, why is God doing this to me? What is happening? Why doesn't he hear my prayers? He sees that I'm suffering. Where is he? It was a lot of that anger state of why is he letting this happen? That was my first reaction. Just disappointed, he's not hearing me. I'm suffering. There were days that I would sit crying with my mom saying, I can't live like this. I don't want to live. I couldn't mother my kids because I was too afraid to walk to the toilet. I didn't want my heart to, I felt any movement I felt like my heart was going to jump out of my chest. So I didn't even want to walk to the toilet. I didn't want to get off the couch. I was afraid to even go outside. Going outside created a panic attack. So I was on the sofa 24 hours a day, scared of my life. I was scared I was going to have a heart attack, scared I wasn't going to be able to stop breathing. They're all completely irrational thoughts, but at the time they're not irrational to me. They felt very, very real. And my mind was so consumed with fear. I did not want to live anymore. The fear was so intense. Living felt absolutely impossible. And I know my mom and parents were so worried that I was going to do something because I didn't want to live anymore. At that time, I said, there are demons in my brain just feeding me constant fear, and I can't do it. I couldn't handle it. I didn't have the strength. My mind was already taken over. I had nothing left inside of me. So
Wow.
I tell people I was in hell. I was in fire burning hell. I can't, that spot in my life was one of the worst I could ever feel.
And to hear you be able to talk about it shows you've overcome a lot.
I have. I mean, it wasn't months, and it wasn't even a year. It was many few years before I could even really speak about it, because talking about a panic attack back then created a panic attack.
Right.
So I didn't even like talking about it. So it took quite a few years for me to even say my story, because all it did was create trauma, and trauma created triggers, which then created more, worrisome thoughts of panic. But it was funny at the time when I was trying to figure out my healing journey. I thought I was praying wrong because I was listening to sermons all day. I had my earplugs because I was so scared of my own thoughts. I had my earplugs in 24 hours a day until the moment I fell asleep, because I didn't want to be alone with my own thoughts. So I would listen to sermons all day, and I said, okay, maybe this guy said I'm praying wrong. Maybe I'm praying wrong. Let me pray this way. Okay, maybe he didn't hear me. Let me try. I tried praying in different ways. I tried, different rosaries. I thought it was something I was praying wrong, that he couldn't hear me. And I said, maybe he's just, I remember I thought, okay, every time I have a panic attack, I'll do this and say this to God. I thought there was a magical word out there that I needed to say to God. And it wasn't. And like I said, it was quite a few months, and it wasn't till I almost stopped looking and I stopped doing all the things that I was finally presented with a life-changing course that really was what my stepping stone into my healing journey. It was on Facebook. I was just scrolling, and you know how the internet basically watches what you do. And of course, I've been looking for healing ways to my anxiety, and an ad came up for a holistic healing journey for women with anxiety. So I happened to pull it up, and it was everything I was looking for. It was just things saying like, are you a woman that has debilitating anxiety that wants to more of a natural way to heal? Reading other people's stories. And at this point, mind you, I had signed up for so many courses and so many therapists that I didn't trust anybody. That it's just, there's so many people out there wanting to take your money and take advantage of your weak state, and you are willing to sign up for anything at the time. As soon as they say we can heal you, you're going to sign up. So at this point, I had wasted so much of my money that I was so scared to try something new. But this one felt different. This one felt right. So I emailed the owner of this particular course, and she sounded amazing. It just felt deep in my core different. And so I signed up for it. And it was life-changing. She knew everything I was going through, could describe my feelings, could tell me what I'm going through, and told me, I know you can heal. And I had multiple people tell me this so many times, but when she said it, I felt it. I cried when she said it. I said, I believed her. She said, I know what you're going through, and yes, you can get better. And like I said, I was at the lowest point of my life. So hearing that, it felt real. I can't even explain it. It felt to the core like, okay, God, this is it.
Mm-hmm.
So I signed up for it, and it was nothing extraordinary special, but it was what I was looking for. It was, because I need to understand. Nobody could tell me why I was feeling this way. What is a panic attack? Why does my brain get fuzzy? Why do I feel like my brain is fuzzy all the time? I had so many symptoms, and doctors or even psychologists couldn't explain to me anything of why I was feeling. They just said, it's a panic attack and that's it. But I wanted to know why. I wanted to understand my body. And that course gave me that. She explained why my head was fuzzy she could explain to every stomach ache. She could explain why my panic attack and every symptom of my panic attack. And it was just amazing. And that was truly the light of this dark tunnel. But mind you, it was still a big tunnel to go through. I had a very, very long, dark tunnel to go through, but she finally gave me that light I was looking for that just felt endless to me.
Is this where you started learning about nutrition?
Yes. I have always been a health freak. I've always been the natural side for many years. But I didn't understand bio-individuality. I just assumed if I ate this way and I did the same things everybody else was doing, I would be okay. But it's not. Every person, especially for women, are made up so complicated, and I needed something different. My body wanted something different. And so I didn't realize blood sugar was truly the foundation to my panic and anxiety, which most people are. A lot of it is blood sugar balancing to help keep me stabilized. And I thought just because I was eating healthy, that meant I'd be okay, but it wasn't. I wasn't eating enough. I wasn't eating, the right items. I didn't have enough protein, just little things like that. And it's weird because when I found that course, my prayer journey started changing too. I started praying differently, not in a certain way, but just talking to him like a friend, talking to him about my day, telling him how scared I was. I wouldn't realize it till I treated it like a relationship and not just a, call out, treating it like a Santa Claus list, telling him these pinpoints that I need, that I started seeing a difference. Or I guess you can say I started hearing him more. I started seeing the things that he's probably been yelling at me for so long, that I've been so demanding of, why aren't you helping me? Why am I not getting better? That I was finally seeing more clearly of what he was trying to show me. And it was still a stepping stone, and it took a while, but it was more of, okay, God, I'm going to take this way. Can you please help me, and to make sure I'm doing the right thing, kind of thing, instead of demands.
So you learning more about your body and what your body needs and giving it what it needs, that also led to what you're doing now, correct?
Yes. Yeah. Well, I've been into baking my entire life, and even in my 20s. Yeah. I started noting issues with my stomach with gluten, although I tried to deny it for many years because I was like, there's no way I'm giving up gluten.
Right.
And of course, like, that's just silly, Sally. I'm not doing that. It's just a tummy ache. So I would just, ignore the tummy aches until the tummy aches got a lot worse. And, like I said, I've always, working out was also a big part of my life. CrossFit, Olympic weightlifting have always been a big part of my journey. So eating more healthy, like I said, has always been a part of my life. But I've always eaten, bread and regular items. But as I got older, I noticed the tummy ache started becoming pain, until one of the times I had like a pizza and it put me in the hospital the next day. I was just screaming in so much pain. And so that's when I started to realize, like, okay, maybe something else is going on. And back then, like I said, this was in my early 20s. Gluten wasn't a word I heard very much, especially celiac. So I, kind of had to go off of friends' recommendations, and doctors themselves really had no idea about celiac or gluten-free. So they were no help either. But I started taking away gluten and I started noticing improvement, unfortunately. And that's when probably in my mid 20s is when I completely removed gluten from well, not completely. I did it for like 90%. I was still kind of holding on to little things. Granted, they were still giving me a lot of pain, but it wasn't until probably my 29, maybe 30 that I was like, okay, I can't. It was like, all the symptoms of tummy issues I can think of that I had to finally like give it up. And that's when the testing came and all the other not good stuff, but all the other stuff that came with celiac diagnosis. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah, but it's what helped me. I hate to use the word distraction, but at the beginning of my baking journey, when I was going through my mental health issues, it did give me a good amount of distraction. Says I needed to keep my mind busy because this journey is what I learned from so many other people that are on the same one is that it really is a very slow race, a very, very long marathon. Every day was almost the same because I knew it was going to take a long time. So baking helped distract my mind. I could bake for hours throughout the day. And it wasn't until my dad and my husband said, you know what, why don't you look into selling it? Your stuff is really good. It's, it's different. It's different than anybody because I specifically wanted to work with almond flour and I didn't want any processed sugars. That was a big one for me with my healing journey is I was never really big on ultra processed sugars, but it wasn't until my mental health that I completely cut them off for the most part. So I only wanted to use natural sugars because it really helped with my blood sugar on keeping my anxiety stable. So the sugars that I used were really important because I love sweets, but I didn't want to compromise it by spiking my blood sugar high and then risking another panic attack. So, and there's not a lot of, if barely any people that bake the way I do, using only,
there's not a lot.
Yeah, using only natural sugars. So I felt like I did have something different, and something that I felt passionate about. I love health. I love, I know a lot of people do it out of fear and has to, but I love it. I get excited about herbs. I get excited about healthy foods. So it was a really great distraction during a very dark time for me.
So as you continue on this path to healing, how has your outlook on life and faith changed?
Because it's still a journey I'm taking, my faith has definitely gotten stronger. It's one of those, instead of fearing every day, it's okay, God, I'm leaving it in your hands, because it is one of those things that if you've ever had someone or been with someone or met someone that has panic anxiety, debilitating, it's sometimes, not everybody, has it for the rest of their life. It will come in some way, shape, or form. And for most people, they can ignore it or you can let it pass. But sometimes it can still affect you. So it's one of those that my faith is stronger, but I still need him as much as I did 3 years ago. It's still one of those things that I struggle with because fear is so strong, but I had to make sure my faith was stronger. So
Amen.
Yes. And that's not easy. It's not easy when your mind is so powerful. Your mind is extremely powerful. And, and I hate to make it sound like demons are more powerful, but they can hit every weak spot that you have and you feel it. The devil really can feed on and see everything that is weak about you and torment you with it. And I feel it. And it wasn't until this last year that I can say for the first time, I've felt an immense amount of peace. My body can feel it. But it's a constant work for me. And I tell my parents and friends, sometimes I do feel broken and sometimes life is really hard for me because I do have a mental health disorder and I try not to let it define me. But there are days where I shut down and I'm in my room crying all day because life is harder for me because I overanalyze. I fear so much. I'm scared of so much. And although I have my faith, I am with God sometimes just for the day talking because I can't handle life sometimes. So it's stronger than what it was, but it's a constant work in progress because it is what you hear constantly preached from people is just trust God, put it in God's hands, take all your fears and put it in his hands. But sometimes that's not so easy. Sometimes your mind wants to hold on to that fear because it's comfort. The fear feels more comfortable than letting it go and making sure it just knowing everything is going to be okay is really hard for me.
It's because faith is a fight. Yeah. You're fighting every day.
Yeah, exactly. And luckily it's not as hard as it was because
Good.
I mean, yeah, it was horrible, but it's still ongoing in a sense, like I said, that I'm still constantly working on it.
Amen.
Yeah.
What advice would you give others who might be struggling with anxiety or any other mental health challenges?
There is such thing as healing. Even when the most impossible thing comes, it is, I feel like I was in the deepest, darkest spot of my life and I was still able to heal. And even though it feels impossible, there are healing methods. It may not be my journey. One of the greatest advice my mom told me was my journey is not somebody else's journey.
It's
And
true.
so because of that, I would always compare my life to somebody else's journey. Oh, she got better. I'd watch a story on social media. Look at her. She was better in a year. Or, you hear people's story on social media saying, hey, I had anxiety for X amount of years and now I don't have anxiety anymore for the rest of my life. And it used to make me jealous. I'm like, how did they not have anxiety? I'm doing all the right things. But, if you truly want it, it can happen. But like I said, even at the darkest point of my life, I'm not sure if I wanted it because living was too hard. You can't give up. I had to hold on to some thread of hope in my life to get out of that dark hole or want to get out of that dark hole. So when someone's in that dark hole, they have to find that shred of light. Just find it and hold on to it because there's always healing. I have found so many people and talked to so many people on different journeys that are similar to mine that takes them years to heal, but healing is possible. You just have to want it. You have to. And even when you don't think you want it, there is still shred of hope or someone who's going to be your strength to get better. Maybe you may not have the strength, but find that person that can help that be that strength for you,
Amen. Yes. Amen.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Nora, your story is truly inspiring and it totally fits this podcast. It's raw, it's real, and you are resilient.
Thank you.
I'm sure it's going to resonate with many listeners. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we wrap up?
As much as one of the things I preach a lot, and only because I said this journey has changed me in so many shape or form. If I could talk to my younger self, she was a brat and she thought she knew everything and, said wasn't the nicest to people because that's just was my personality. But I think God needed me to go through this to change and see people in a different light and to change me into a better person. As hell as it was, it has made me a better person and more understanding and seeing people, maybe that person that's screaming at someone else in line at Starbucks isn't mean. Maybe their dad just died. Maybe they are going through mental health issues. That person that's mean down the street, maybe they're not mean. Maybe they are suffering. So I tried to remember to tell people to be kind. That's, you have to be kind to others. You don't know what they're going through. Their way of expressing that pain could be anger. Their way of expressing that grief could be, loud and screaming at others. Not to say that's okay, but to understand that everybody is going through something. Everybody has their hard journey. It may not be mine. It may be worse. It may be different. Everybody has their own journey. So I wish people would learn to be more kind to each other because we are all
empathetic.
Yeah, we all have our own suffering.
Well, before we wrap up, I want to give your business a shout out. So
thank you.
Tell us a little bit about your business, your name, and where can we find you?
So my business is Nora Sweet Lavender. I'm at the Las Cruces Farmers Market every Saturday, but it's focused on whole food ingredients. I'm very proud of the ingredients I use on my baking. I stick with, no soys, no natural flavors. I use no seed oils. I use no dyes. I stick to everything natural and using organic ingredients. So I'm really proud of them. And I help cater to those that have a lot of food allergies, such as corn and soy. So I'm really proud of the things I come up with. But even with all my limited ingredients, I come up with delicious items. And the fact that I have made it to some of the top 5 categories in Messia Best has kind of spoken and really reassured me that what I'm making doesn't taste
It's
like
good.
crap.
Oh my gosh. It
So,
is. It's so
yes.
delicious. I can attest to that because everything I've had, I'm wondering, is this really no sugar? You know, it's so good. My favorite still is the cookie, the pecan cookie, and I do want to try your
Yes,
oatmeal
those are
cream
one.
pies. That's
My
next.
oatmeals are the best, but my pecan are delicious too. I told you that one's the one that you can't tell is gluten free. So
No, I shared it with some friends and they were like, where can I get some more? This is ridiculous. How is this a better version of the regular cookie?
Yes,
You're doing a
exactly.
great job. You're doing a
Thank
great
you.
job.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much again, Nora, for sharing your
Thank you.
story. Your story is a testament to the power of faith, the importance of self-care, and the beauty of finding peace, even in the midst of life's storms. For our listeners, I hope Nora's testimony has encouraged you to hold on to hope no matter what challenges you face. If you've been touched by today's episode, please remember to subscribe, leave a review, and share this story with those who might need to hear about the power of God's love and grace. And join us next time for another powerful testimony on Breakthrough Chronicles, where we share raw, real, and resilient stories of faith. Until then, stay blessed and keep believing.